Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening to this, whenever you're listening to this. We welcome you to the Build Your Success podcast. We thank you for listening to the podcast today. We at the Build Your Success podcast like to build you so you can build others. We do that through our corporate training, coaching, and speaking events, but we also do that with our special guest here on the podcast. I am grateful today to have Jamey Lutz. Jamey is an accomplished performance writer, speaker, and thought leader with more than 25 years of experience working with customer and employee-centric organizations such as Ritz-Carlton, Atlantic Capital, Home Bank Mortgage, and the Orlando Magic NBA basketball team. Jamey is also the author of Pathway to Purpose, Big Ideas for Fueling Irresistible Corporate Cultures. So welcome to the podcast today, Jamey.
Brian, it is my pleasure. I'm very excited to be on and to interact or speak with some of your guests today.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, you came recommended by Chip Bell. You and I were having a conversation about him earlier. I had him as a guest on the podcast. Great guy. So I'm glad he made this connection.
Absolutely. It's hard to follow Chip Bell, but he is absolutely a fantastic guy.
That is wonderful. Well, listen, I'm going to ask you the question we ask all of our guests on the show. What does leadership and being a leader mean to Jamey Lutz?
That's a great question. I think a lot of people view it in different ways, but to me, it's pretty simple. I think leadership is really just about influence, right? And I'm not a leader. I don't define myself as a leader. People decide whether I'm a leader by following me. And I also think that a leader is someone that helps people accomplish what they're not able to accomplish on their own.
That's exactly right. I love that. John Maxwell talks about leadership as influence, nothing less, nothing more. That's wonderful. And in your application here, you said leadership is about taking people to a place where they would not normally go, that they can, and so that they can achieve what they would not normally achieve. I love that, how you're guiding them to a place they haven't been and helping them achieve something they never achieved before. So unpack that for us. How do you do that?
Yeah, well, again, no one's going to follow you if they don't see you as worthy of following. But I think a huge part of a leader is being a caretaker for your people. And in order to do that, you have to get to know them. And once they feel a sense of psychological safety, they feel comfortable with you, that they can trust you, then they're going to allow you to push or encourage them outside of their comfort zones. Nothing great ever gets accomplished if we don't go outside of what feels normal or typical. And I think a leader's role, again, is to help people go where they would not normally feel comfortable going. And they're not going to do that, at least not willingly, unless they feel comfortable with the leader.
Like that. I like that. What I'm hearing there is they trust the leader. And so then they're willing to follow the leader. So that's wonderful. You said it earlier, that I've been paraphrasing this lately. I can choose to lead, but I can't choose to be a leader.
Absolutely.
Because someone has to follow me for me to be a leader. So that's just wonderful. Well, let's talk about this book, this Pathway to Purpose. In the book, you define corporate culture as the collective beliefs and norms of an organization that drive predictable actions and related outcomes. So that's a lot of words there, a lot to unpack there, but it's a great definition of corporate culture.
Absolutely. And every organization has a culture, whether they create it intentionally or not. And every department, every family has a culture. And so you want to, if you want to create an irresistible culture, you want to be thoughtful about it and proactive about it. But really your culture really is just defined by, what are the collective beliefs and behaviors of the organization? Or another way to think about it is, what happens when the boss or the person that's in charge looks away? That's really your culture. That's what you're left with is, I'm not acting or behaving in a certain way because I have to. It's part of my DNA. It's part of who I am. So I think it's the collective beliefs, but it really is also about what happens when the boss is away or the leader is away. That's how you distill down your culture and what it really is.
I like that. I love the collective part of that because, I heard one great CEO speak one time, and he changed organizations, and he realized he couldn't lead the second organization the way he led the first organization because it had a different culture, and the culture is made up of the people. It's not only the leader himself that and they can have great influence on a culture, but the culture is defined collectively by the organization.
Absolutely. And you're right. I think it's the leader's role, particularly the founder, CEO, senior leadership, to identify and articulate what that vision or that culture is. But again, you've got to have people within the organization that are aligned with that. It becomes very difficult to drive a culture if others don't believe in the principles behind that culture. So absolutely, you can have a grandiose vision, but if you don't have the people that believe in it and are aligned with it, then you're only gonna get so far in terms of manifesting that culture.
Yeah, that's amazing. One of the things you said here in your application, and for the listeners, if you ever want to be a guest on the show, go to our website, www.buildcs.net. There's an application there to be a guest. So click on that link and you can apply to be a guest. But that's what we got here. And it says, as a business leader, do your employees approach each day with the want to or have to mindset? And I think this speaks to a culture. I talk about when we volunteer for things, our heart's in it. And so we'll do anything for something that we want to give our heart to. And if we could create a culture where people want to come to work, where they want to be part of a team, that's going to be great. So let's have a conversation around that. How do you create this want to culture?
Well, again, I think it goes back, Brian, initially to the people that you're hiring. It's difficult to change someone's belief system once they're already in the organization. So you really want to look for, again, are they aligned with the culture and the core values and the core principles of the organization? But assuming that they do, you've got to create an environment where they can thrive. And we talked about before, that part of a leader's role is to help their people go where they would not normally go. And so, again, that trust element comes in, but also that willingness on behalf of the leader to play an active role, not just in their career, but in their life in general. And again, you build that trust, you help your employees see that it's not just about the bottom line. It's more about creating an environment where people can thrive and where they potentially see their work as an extension of their lives in general. I think that everybody has this core desire, this innate desire in their hearts to be a part of something, bigger than themselves. And again, as much time as we spend in the workplace, it is a huge and significant opportunity for people to say, you know what, I'm not rolling out of bed every day just because I have to. I actually find value and purpose and joy in what I'm doing. And so I think that's part of it is as a leader creating this kind of holistic environment where our people see what they love is aligned with the core values and principles of the organization. And when you do that, Brian, I think you've created an environment where people will go out of their way on behalf of each other and on behalf of your customers.
That is wonderful, Jamey. It makes me think about when I go into high schools and talk to students about considering the construction field as a career. And I tell them, when I found the construction field, I was just looking for a job. I was looking for a paycheck. I was looking for the have to. I got to make it. I got to make a living. Yeah. But I found a very rewarding career and something that I love doing. I love to see buildings take place. I love to see things happen, and that's transitioned to me. Want to see people being built. But I think you talked about this. I hear the work-life balance and those things. One of my guests introduced me to WorkLife Harmony. And I think that's a better way to put it because, it's not balanced. It's not 50-50 or 60-40. It's the moment. The moment you're in, you need to make that a harmony and work together. And I think for employees, if they can understand when the business thrives as long as the leader's sharing that with them, they thrive. It goes together collectively. And when they understand, we can do good for the community when we're profitable because we'll have funds to do that with.
Yeah, really. It's in that moment, Brian, where you know that you're not just making a living, but you're making a difference. And I love what you said about the work-life harmony. I actually use the term work-life integration. I think I might like harmony better, but I talk about that in my book as well, that, the lives that we lead, particularly in a highly remote world, it becomes more and more difficult to separate work life from your life. And to me, it's an integration of both, and they both should speak to what is your purpose. What do you feel like you've been placed here on the planet to do? And when that aligns with your work, man, you've got a powerful motivation there.
Well, that sounds like a pathway to purpose, doesn't it?
It does, and that's part of the title actually speaks to that for sure.
Yeah, I think when people can realize they have more than a job, they are producing something that society needs, and they're fulfilling a void for someone, and it just makes it become reality at that point.
Absolutely.
And that's a great segue into something I wrote down from your book. You talk about accountability and recognition, and you say they are the key components of performance excellence. In fact, you call them fundamental companions. So we're talking about harmony here. This is a great place to talk about how accountability and recognition just really go together as companions.
And that I also say they're in that same vein, they're two sides of the same coin, right? And I believe that they are intricately linked. I had a friend of mine that once said something to me, and it was like, oh my gosh, you hit on something huge there. He said accountability without recognition is demoralizing. So, I'm being held accountable for something, but I never get acknowledged. And when I say recognition, I don't necessarily mean financial. It's just in general, acknowledge me for doing a good job or encourage me. So accountability without recognition is demoralizing. Recognition without accountability is hollow. So you're recognizing me for something, but I don't really know exactly what it is. And it kind of feels a little crafted or created, manufactured. And so I think we need both of those as human beings. Everybody is wired to want to be acknowledged, to want to feel like they matter, to be recognized. And a lot of times that's just, those are just, it may be just telling me that. It doesn't necessarily have to be a financial or monetary piece. So everybody wants to be recognized. And I think, although the word has gotten a really bad rap over time, I think people want to be held accountable too. Because if I don't know what the target is, how do I know how I'm doing? And everybody wants to know kind of where they stand. So really, those two are very intricately linked together. You need both of them, both in a personal standpoint and dealing with friends and family, but you definitely need both of those as it relates to the professional world as well. They are definitely two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, and I think the accountability, you said it gets a bad rap, but I want accountability. I want accountability partners. I want to know what I'm doing is coming to fruition.
That's right.
And I don't remember the exact study, but I do remember that when people get a wage increase, so the monetary side of this, that only lasts for it's a week or maybe less. That you're excited. Hey, I got a wage increase. After that, you got it. It's no longer that big of a deal. But if we could take in just those small things, hey, we've put this initiative out, and we need to say, well, thank you. You did a good job with that. Thank you for putting in whatever it is that's a key component of your business. Recognize people that are actually doing what you're asking them to do on a consistent basis. That's going to go a lot further than just the wage increase.
Absolutely. And there's lots of studies out there, but one that I am familiar with is, there was a study done that said 80% of people that were surveyed said that they would prefer to have a new manager than a promotion or a increase in their salary. So 80% said they would rather have a new manager than an increase. And that really goes back to, we've got to be able to survive financially, but it only has a limited amount of impact. People want a manager, a relationship, a coach that's going to push them to the next level. And I think that really speaks to the fact that, money's great, but people want meaning as well.
Yeah, and I know that the next generations, they really are after
Mm-hmm.
making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
We still have to make an earning. I hear this deal where you say, "Would you work for nothing? Would you do what you do for nothing?" That sounds great, but you're going to starve to death if you
Not real practical, right?
if you don't have an income. So I like the fact that you can have an income and enjoy what you do. That's really good. And I think, back to this accountability piece, that's where we got to make sure we're not only having the fun. A lot of offices now are integrating some fun in the office and those things, but you also have to have the product. You have to have something that people are willing to exchange their money for, their hard-earned money for.
Absolutely. That's 100% correct.
So one of the things you speak on is employee engagement. So what are some ways that we can engage employees in an authentic manner? I know this is just one of those, another word that gets overused and underutilized. So how can we engage our employees better?
Yeah, and I kind of continue to kind of harp on this, but I think it's really, really important is, I don't know what drives you, Brian, unless I get to know you, unless I understand not just your work skills and your technical expertise, but what gives you passion, what gives you purpose in life. And I think that's the role of a manager, which I talk about in the book, is more of a coach, is understanding what drives you. And so much of what we do needs to tie back to what is unique about that individual and really what's important to them. What can we what buttons can we push? And I don't mean in a manipulative way, but what buttons can we push to help them, again, achieve what they would not be able to achieve on their own, to go where they would not normally be able to go without a coach leading them in that capacity. So, certainly the reward and accountability is a part of that, but knowing them on a personal level and taking a sincere interest in their lives and really what makes them tick, what gets them out of bed every morning.
I like that. And I think about what motivates them. And if you can make them understand how their career, their livelihood will help them support what they enjoy. Years ago, they used to tell us to leave work at home and leave home at work, or vice versa. Leave home at home and work at work.
Yeah.
Don't take your work home with you and vice versa. But if you've ever been through a challenging time in your family, you cannot leave that at home.
And vice versa, right?
Exactly.
It's very, and again, it goes back to that work-life harmony. Again, love that term, or work-life integration is your life is your life, and they're all integrated. Whether we like to pretend that they're not, is a different matter, but absolutely they're so closely linked together.
Yeah, and the times I've seen our teams really do well together is in those times when one of the team members has a family issue and the rest of the team steps up to the plate and says, "Hey, we got this. You go take care of that." That's when you really get to see people doing their best. And I don't want to go home and burden my family with work problems, but I do want to make them aware of what I do and the struggles we have at times and those type of things. They just know that life, as you said, life is real. It's nothing that we can just wave a magic wand and there's not going to happen.
That's right.
Well, Jamey, we've reached that place in the podcast today where I want to let the listeners and those that are watching on YouTube know how they can get in contact with you, where they can find you on social media and those things. For our those that are watching on YouTube, I'm going to bring this up. It's his website. It's JameyLutz.com, and that's spelled Lutz for those that are listening. We'll also put that in the show notes. What can they find there, Jamey?
So you're going to be able to find a lot more information about kind of my background, some of the experiences I've had in the past. And it's also going to be a way for you, if you want to learn more about my book, Pathway to Purpose, you'll be able to do that. Or if you want to ask me questions or reach out and learn more about how we might partner or interact, you can also do that on the website.
That's great. Jamey, you're also on LinkedIn. I think I found you there.
LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, a little bit on Instagram, but probably LinkedIn would be the best way to reach out to me.
That's the single one I use. I try not to get distracted by the other ones. I just stick with the business side of
That's
things.
right.
So, well, for our listeners, we appreciate you listening to the podcast today. Jamey was an excellent guest, some great nuggets, takeaways there. We'd love for you to share those with your friends and family and your coworkers. So share this podcast with others. Do us a favor. Go over to wherever you're listening to this on that platform. Leave us an honest review and rating. And again, share this with your friends and family. They could use this as well. If you want to get in contact with me, you can email me at brianb@buildcs.net. Go to our website, buildcs.net, and see what we offer. Thanks for listening to the podcast today. Remember to build yourself and then build others.